My bedroom is right next to my younger brother's room. Even though we were still very young, we enjoyed having our own rooms and possessions and didn't share one room. One night, I was lying in my bed and everyone else in the house was fast asleep already. It was quiet. I couldn't sleep at first. I was just laying there, listening to the wind blowing through the leaves and branches of the trees outside in the dark. I kept tossing and turning, and after a while I finally fell asleep. Then it started, the terrifying nightmare. I saw a ghostly figure with a big mouth full of sharp teeth. I was so frightened until I could finally snap out of it and wake up with sweat dripping from my body. The next morning we were having breakfast with the family, and all my mind was focusing on was that nightmare. It didn't bother me too much, so I kept it to myself and didn't tell anyone. Suddenly, my brother started telling us about his night terror. He said he had a dream, and in the dream he could see my room. In my room, he saw me sleeping, and there was a figure standing beside my door. He saw the figure slowly walking inside my room, towards me. He described the figure as dark and ghostly, with a huge mouth full of big, sharp teeth. I was so shocked. I still kept quiet and never told my family, because I didn't want anyone to think I was crazy or making it up. How did my brother see the same figure as me that night, without me telling him anything? Was I dreaming? Or was I really seeing the figure right in front of me, while I was wide awake? Me and my family decided to rent a house. The house had many metal hooks in the basement ceiling. Not tool hooks, but the ones where you're supposed to hang meat on, like in butcher shops. We didn't think much of it, and we even joked about how it may be a murder house. About a week went by, and we started getting used to the house. Strangely though, my son started saying, "Yes, sir, Captain." He was only 2 years old, and that isn't a phrase we ever used before. Then he started to tell me how Captain was bothering him. We eventually decided to build in some video monitors around his room because of his strange behavior. One day I watched some footage, and I watched as he talks to someone he later identified as Captain. He kept telling Captain to go. He kept saying, "Captain, you have to go. You have to leave." The following nights, he started to have night terrors. These terrors were so violent that my husband and I had to lay pillows around him at night so he wouldn't injure himself or us. He would bite, kick, and try to climb the dressers and bookshelves. Nothing would soothe him until he would just snap out of it. The pictures on the wall and the hooks I told you about earlier would just unscrew themselves and crash down. We decided it was enough and switched homes. I was hoping it would last longer than a week this time, and it did. But just another week later, we were just 2 weeks in, and my son tells me, "I like this new house, but I don't like the new mom." We didn't know if we were haunted or if our son was sick or disturbed. We, for the love of God, didn't experience anything else after that, and I hope it stays that way. It was around the end of October 2014. My 4-year-old son started waking up in the middle of the night, between 12 and 1 a.m. This kept going for around a week, and every time he woke up, he would enter my room and crawl in my blankets, shaking in fear. My wife and I thought he was just having nightmares, and we didn't pay much attention. My wife is a lawyer, and one night she was taking care of some of her clients as usual, and I was in my room waiting for her to come home. Right then, I heard my son wake up again. I heard him walk out of his room. He started a conversation with someone outside of my room. As he was talking, he started to yell at someone. He then entered my room panicking and crawled into my blankets. I told my son to stay under the blankets while I went out to investigate. I took my gun and searched the house for an intruder, but there was no one else in the house except me and my son. My wife arrived an hour later, and I told her what happened. The next morning, I asked my son what happened the night before. He told me there was someone in his room who didn't let him sleep. But as he was only 4 years old, he wasn't capable of telling me any more details. That night, I made sure his bedroom door was closed right after I tucked him to bed, and we went to sleep as well. It was around 1 a.m. I woke up to noises coming from our bedroom door. My wife also woke up. We initially thought it was our son trying to enter the room as he had been doing before. "Come in, son. The door isn't locked," I yelled across the room. But there was no response. Instead, the doorknob started to shake intensely and make a lot of noise. I asked my son to come in one more time, but again, there was no answer. Something didn't make sense. So I took the gun again and told my wife to turn on the desk lamp and hide behind the bed. I made sure there was a bullet in the chamber, turned off the safety, and walked towards the door. The doorknob was still shaking while I made my way to the door. While holding the gun in my right hand, I slowly moved my left hand towards the shaking knob. I pulled the knob down slowly, unknowingly held my breath in, and pulled the door open quick and hard. There was nothing at the other side of that door. I walked to my son's room and opened the door, but my son was fast asleep. I checked the whole house, including all windows and doors, and didn't find anyone again. I went back to my room and verified with my wife that I wasn't the only one hearing those sounds, so I knew I wasn't going crazy. These incidents kept happening the following nights, until we decided to bring a priest to cleanse the house, even though I'm not a believer of the paranormal. We didn't experience anything strange after that, and that was the end of it. We still don't know what was bothering our house and our son those nights, and maybe we never will.